Project Censored. The Real Fight Against Fake News. Project Censored's Top 10 Censored Stories. By Paul Rosenberg. Fake news is not a new thing. With the return of its annual list of censored stories in Censored 2019, Fighting the Fake News Invasion, Project Censored's vivid cover art recalls H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. The situation today may feel as desolate as the cover art suggests, but Censored 2019 is a book about fighting fake news, editors Andy Lee Roth and Mickey Huff observed in the book's introduction. In the end, they argued that, quote, critical media education, rather than censorship, blacklists, privatized fact-checkers, or legislative bans, is the best weapon for fighting the ongoing fake news invasion, close quote. Critical media education is the best weapon for fighting the ongoing fake news invasion. I hope the AntiClimactic NonShow can be seen as contributing to critical media education. Project Censored's annual list of 25 censored stories, which makes up the book's lengthy first chapter, is one of the best resources one can have for such an education. Censorship and fake news are intertwined issues, they write. Project Censored has long been engaged in much more than just uncovering and publicizing stories kept down and out of the corporate media. Over the years, it's added new analytical categories. Sensationalist and titillating junk food news stories. Through it all, the list of censored stories remains central to Project Censored's mission, which the editors point out can be read in two different ways. Quote, as a critique of the shortcomings of U.S. corporate news media for their failure to adequately cover these stories, or as a celebration of independent news media, without which we would remain either uninformed or misinformed about these crucial stories and issues, close quote. The cover art theme works at two levels, as the editors explain, which makes things more complex than might appear at first glance. First, the famous Orson Welles radio broadcast of the War of the Worlds on October 30th, 1938, used a number of devices to present the drama as though it were an actual crisis in progress. It became an example of the potential power of fake news in the radio media era. Quote, the broadcast became legendary for allegedly leading to widespread panic throughout the United States, close quote, the editors of Project Censored noted. That narrative about widespread panic is actually a more long-term form of fake news, as Jefferson Pooley and Michael J. Socolow have documented in a series of articles over the past decade. Both the audience size and degree of panic have been significantly inflated, they explained. They cited two main factors: newspaper editors, who saw radio as challenging their media dominance, and an influential media study, whose top-line conclusions were at odds with some of its data. That was Paul's intro. We've read 10, 9, 8, and 7, 6, and 5. Today we're going to read 4 and 3. No, 3 and 2. We read 4. Did we skip one? Yeah, we did. We skipped 5. By accident. Washington Post bans employees from using social media to criticize sponsors. On May 1st, 2017, the Washington Post introduced a policy prohibiting its employees from criticizing its advertisers and business partners and encouraging them to snitch on one another. Quote, a new social media policy at the Washington Post prohibits conduct on social media that adversely affects the Post's customers, advertisers, subscribers, vendors, suppliers, or partners, Andrew Beaujean reported in the Washingtonian the next month. Quote, in such cases, Post management reserves the right to take disciplinary action up to and including termination of employment. Beaujean also cited, quote, a clause that encourages employees to snitch on one another. If you have any reason to believe that an employee may be in violation of the Post's social media policy, you should contact the Post's Human Resources Department, close quote. At the time, the Washington-Baltimore News Guild, which represents the Post's employees, was protesting the policy and was seeking removal of the controversial parts in a new labor agreement. A follow-up report by Whitney Webb of Mint Press News highlighted the broader possible censorship effects, as prohibiting social media criticism could spill over into reporting as well. Quote, among the Washington Post's advertisers are corporate giants like GlaxoSmithKline, Bank of America, and Koch Industries, Webb wrote. With the new policy, social media posts criticizing GlaxoSmithKline's habit of making false and misleading claims about its products, inflating prices, and withholding crucial drug safety information from the government will no longer be made by Post employees, close quote. Beyond that, Webb suggested it could protect the CIA, which has $600 million contract with Amazon Web Services. Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos purchased the Post 4 months before that contract was signed. Quote, while criticism of the CIA is not technically prohibited by the new policy, former Post reporters have suggested that making such criticisms could endanger one's career, close quote, Webb noted. He added that in 2013, former Post writer John Hanrahan told Alternate, Post reporters and editors are aware that Bezos, as majority owner of Amazon, has a financial stake in maintaining good relations with the CIA, and this sends a clear message to even the hardest-nosed journalist that making the CIA look bad might not be a good career move, close quote. Project Censored noted, quote, corporate news coverage of the Washington Post's social media policy has been extremely limited. It's part of a much broader problem identified in Jeremy Igger's 1998 book, Good News, Bad News, Journalism Ethics and the Public Interest. Here's where Paul Rosenberg is helpful. He's giving us a book in each of these cases. This is an old one, I remember it. Jeremy Igger's 1998 book, Good News, Bad News, Journalism Ethics and the Public Interest. Iggers argued that journalism ethics focused on individual reporters completely missed the larger issue of corporate conflicts whose systemic effects fundamentally undermined journalism's role in democracy. That's good. We talked about that on the program when I was describing being in rooms where the writer is there and I was there as a fact checker or as a researcher, and the editor is there and the publisher, someone representing the publisher is there, and 3 lawyers are over here, and the 3 lawyers are telling the writer, no, you can't say that, and the writer's saying, yes, I can, and turning to me and me going, yes, we have it here, and the publisher is saying, I don't want to stand up for that, why would I take the chance? And I'm saying, there's no chance, I'm holding the fact, and didn't matter, right? Strike that, strike that, strike that. So lawyers edited the piece. I've witnessed that with my own eyes as a journalist in New York. We have a real problem here, folks. Well, so that was the one we missed. That was 5. So now I'm going to do 3, and that'll take us probably to the top of the hour. And then tomorrow we'll have 2 and 1, which will be the last day of the whole thing. Thank you, Paul Rosenberg. These are the Project Censored Top 10 stories. Number 3. World's richest 1% continue to become wealthier. In November 2017, Credit Suisse released its 8th annual Global Wealth Report, which The Guardian reported on under the headline, Richest 1% Own Half the World's Wealth, study finds. The wealth share of the world's richest people increased, quote, from 42.5% at the height of the 2008 financial crisis to 50.1% in 2017, or 140 trillion dollars. 106 trillion pounds, close quote, The Guardian reported, open quote. Despite being more educated than their parents, millennials are doing less well than their parents at the same age, especially in relation to income, home ownership, and other dimensions of well-being assessed in this report. Roner Credit Suisse chairman Urs Roner said, we expect only a minority of high achievers and those in high-demand sectors such as technology or finance to effectively overcome the millennial disadvantage. I know so many people my age and just a little younger, they don't even understand what these young people are going through at all. And they decry them and call them names and run them down. But they're being handed a really messed up world. Quote, no other part of the wealth pyramid has been transformed as much since 2000 as the millionaire and ultra-high net worth individual, known as UHNWI. Ultra-high net worth individual, UHNWI. Segments, that's a segment of the population, the report said. The number of millionaires has increased by 170%, while the number of UHNWIs, individuals with net worth of $50 million or more, has risen 5, making them by far the fastest growing group of wealth holders. Close quote. There were of 2.3 million new dollar millionaires this year, taking the total to 36 million. That's what that sentence says. This is the worst weekly, man. I've read this weekly for years, and it's so bad. I think that's supposed to say there were 2.3 million new dollar millionaires this year, taking the total to 36 million. I don't know. Quote, at the other end of the spectrum, the world's 3.5 billion poorest adults each have assets of less than $10,000, The Guardian reported. Collectively, these people, who account for 70% of the world's working age population, account for just 2.7% of global wealth. I think those wealthy people are going to conduct genocides. That's what I actually think. Like in that horrible movie they made. Quote, tremendous concentration of wealth and the extreme poverty that results from it are problems that affect everyone in the world, but wealth inequities do not receive nearly as much attention as they should in the establishment press. Project Censored noted, quote, the few corporate news reports that have addressed this issue, including an August 2017 Bloomberg article and a July 2016 report for CBS's Money Watch, focused exclusively on wealth inequality within the United States. As Project Censored has previously reported, corporate news consistently covers the world's billionaires, while ignoring millions of humans who live in poverty. Close quote. Okay, so that's going to take us to the top of the hour. Welcome. It is, let's see, 1800 hours, UTC. That's always UTC right there. So. Hang now, you can see it. I don't know. 1 o'clock in the afternoon in New York, 10 a.m. in Los Angeles, 11:30 at night in Mumbai, India, 3 a.m. Tokyo, and 5 a.m. in Australia. This is the Anticlimactic Non-Show with your host. It is the penultimate episode, episode number 19. There will be one more, and that's tomorrow. This is going to be a chance for me to cut up these into segments, and I'll put them on the internet. If you watch any of them, please, do comment, feedback, let me know your thoughts.